want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do a broadcast with us. We have been concerned about Ukraine since this whole thing began back in 2014. And I have done everything in my power to support Ukraine since 2014, including coming over there and working with you fine folks to help you guys sharpen your blade and be more combat effective on the battlefield. For your service to Ukraine, I personally want to thank you for what you have done to help Ukraine with their information war, which this is a huge war that you fight every day, and we support you in that battle. So again, thank you for being here. So I guess to
Thank
start,
you so much. It's a pleasure, and I must say that I'm really happy that finally we made it, because we tried to appoint a stream for quite a while, and it's a big pleasure to be here today.
well, thank you, sir, for being here. We greatly appreciate that. So I want to go back to 2014 when the war first started, and I want to get rid of some misnomers about, Crimea belongs to Russia, or the fact that most of the people in Crimea want to be Russian, or the people in the Donbass want to be Russian. These are a lot of lies that have been put out, and they need to be corrected. Or like the fact that the Azov battalion is not a bunch of Nazis. It's absolutely insane. Nazi battalions don't fight for Jewish presidents. Okay, that's never happened in history as far as I know. And the people that believe this misinformation, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So let's go back to the beginning. In 2014, when the war broke out, you were a police officer, is that correct?
No, sir. 2014, I was an activist at the Revolution of Dignity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because everything started there. Basically, for me, everything started in 2013 when I came to Maidan, Square of Independence in Kiev, because I wanted to support my friends. It looked like, like just another peaceful protest. We had a lot of them in Ukraine because Ukraine is a democratic country, and we can have protests. And at that protest, I met a lot of my friends, a lot of acquaintances from all kinds of organizations, from non-government organizations, from educational organizations, and things like that. And then we witnessed this horrible, brutal beating of students that stayed at the Maidan. There was this moment when, there was like rainy weather, and everybody, like the organizers of the revolution, they decided that nothing was going to happen that day. They told the guys to go home, and just several people left at the Maidan. And the brutal beating of those protesters happened there.
And who did the beating?
Back in those days, there was this police special force called Berkut, basically like SWAT / riot police. And they were known for being brutal. Basically, they were used by the criminal regime as punishing force. There were big guys, basically like Kadyrovites in Russia nowadays, but those were in Ukraine. They were Ukrainians, and they were just brought to Maidan to beat up those students who absolutely had no weapons, who absolutely were not aggressive, and they just tried to remove them from the Maidan. And when this happened, the next day, Ukraine woke up completely, and millions of people went on the streets to protest against, this brutal beating of people. And this is how this revolution started, basically. because we were so much fed up with, with corruption, with this criminal regime ruling us, trying to, sit on both chairs at the same time, trying to sign association with the European Union, at the same time dragging us back to the Russia's influence, that trade space, Russia, Kazakhstan, and Asia.
And most of these guys that were corrupt, they were holdovers from the Russian days. Is that correct? These were a lot of Putin's puppets still in Ukraine that were operating kind of under his remote control.
Absolutely. Just one small fact. Our former Minister of Defense, his name was Salamatin. He was walking around with FSB emblem on his jacket. Because he thought it was cool.
Yeah, and he also did everything he could to destroy your military, not
Absolutely.
maintaining your equipment, not training the soldiers, not keeping up what needed to be done. That way, and the way I know, because when I got there in January of 2015, you guys weren't ready for war. It was
that's correct. So our army was pretty much destroyed. The salaries were so low. So the guys that I knew and who served back then in the army, they were fanatics. They could not find another job because they were fanatics. They fanatically loved military. But other than that, they had to also work in other fields in order to upkeep their family, buy equipment.
They were getting paid like what, $150 a month US?
$150 would be about right, I would say, back then. It's a month.
Yes. $150 a month. Imagine working for a military. You love your country so much that you will work for $150 a month. It's probably one of the lowest paying jobs in Ukraine at the time, as far as
absolutely. Nobody wanted to serve, and when the revolution started, again, we know that the dictator Yanukovych, our former president, he wanted to bring airborne assault troops to Maidan, but they refused. They basically said no, won't work. And that's why he used internal police, so-called. It's like internal troops. Those guys later transformed into the National Guard of Ukraine. It's where I'm serving right now. And they also used riot police and Berkut, the punishing force.
Can you explain that to the viewers here, the difference between the National Guard of Ukraine, the Ukraine Army, and then a group like Dnipro 1 or the Azov Battalion?
Yeah, so National Guard of Ukraine is a military force with law enforcement functions. So basically we have plenty of different units that have different tasks. It's from guarding the diplomatic facilities like embassies to escorting convicts to operative brigades like my brigade, fighting at the front lines. So we have different tasks, and in peaceful times, or more or less peaceful times, we belong to the Ministry of Interior. During the wartime, we are connected to the General Staff of Ukraine, and we belong to the Ministry of Defense during the wartime. Azov is a unit in the National Guard of Ukraine. So battalions like Dnipro 1, for example, or Kiev 1, the battalion where I served back in my days in 2015, they belonged to the Ministry of Interior. They were so-called Special Force Police battalions. And currently we have this so-called assault guard, which consists of 9 units. 7 of them are National Guard units, created specifically to punish orcs at the front lines prior to our counteroffensive. and it also consists of one unit that belongs to the border guard. It's called Steel Border, and another unit called the Fury, which consists of battalions of the Ministry of Interior, basically like patrol police, special force police, etc.
Okay, so when the war first got started and the Russians started coming in, they used basically guerrilla tactics against you guys. And so you didn't even have laws that would allow you to use your military to engage these guys because they came in dressed as civilians. You knew they were Russian Spetsnaz. We knew they were Russian Spetsnaz. And the way the laws were set up, you could not use, just like in the United States, you can't use the military against a domestic uprising to physically engage them. You can't turn weapons of the military on your civilian population. And then once these traitors that were in the country went against Ukraine, and then you had the Spetsnaz that were coming into Ukraine from Russia. All this was sponsored by Russia. The weapon systems, the vehicles, everything was from Russia that was coming in. Once they came in, then they brought in people like GV and Motorola. So would you go into GV and Motorola a little bit? Because here's where I got involved. When I saw what GV and Motorola were doing, I said no. And so that's when I came to Ukraine, was to resolve their issue, which I'm glad to say they're no longer in this conflict. And I had a part of that. So I'm happy to be part of that. So tell us about GV and Motorola, and then I'll tell you why I came to Ukraine. Or what?
Yeah, so GV and Motorola, they were so-called leaders of terrorist groups, Sparta and that one was Sparta. The other one was, damn it, Somali. So GV commanded the Somalia, and Motorola commanded Sparta. So Motorola, his original name is Arseny Pavlov. He is ethnic Russian, just like tens, if not hundreds, of their commanders that were ethnic Russians, like Igor Strelkov Girkin, right? The international terrorist. And Givi, he was a local dude. He worked prior to this coup in Donbass. He worked as a guard, like as a warden in one of the Donetsk.
Now, he wanted to be an official part of the military, but due to a physical disability, the Russian military wouldn't take him. Isn't that correct? Do you know what I thought he had a problem with his leg or something.
He had a problem with the brain, actually, but
that too.
Yeah, but so later they became stars on the Russian TV, and actually they're always referred to as being, legendary warlords on the Donbass. In reality, they were like talking heads, on the TV, because there were plenty of Russian curators, basically giving them orders and commanding their troops. There were people coming from Chechnya, Kadyrovites, and regular Russian officers, like servicemen. Regular servicemen, but those were like talking heads, and they were basically used by Russian propaganda a lot in order, to show like. Remember this moment when they captured so-called cyborgs, Ukrainian defenders in the Donetsk airport, and Givi was furious, so he shot one of the guys, actually. Then he cut the Ukrainian flag of the jacket of one of the officers, made him eat it, and things like that. He was like furious, and Russians were looking at him and like, yeah, that's the way to do with them, so long story short, they died. They became better. They're now good Russians.
Mm-hmm.
So Motorola had a rather unfortunate ride in an elevator in Donetsk. And Givi got toasted when some unknown people shot a so-called flamethrower. It's shmel, like a grenade launcher charged with thermobaric charge. And it exploded in his office, which is deadly. It's it's really bad for people hiding in like buildings. So basically they got improved, and I think it's beautiful.
Absolutely. So what got me into it? I was already supporting Ukraine, but what made me want to come to Ukraine was I was watching videos of GV, and I could see what GV was doing. So one day, GV was riding around with his photographer. I don't know if you knew he actually had a photographer that would take him around and create these propaganda videos. So one day, GV finds a 105 millimeter artillery piece. And that 105 millimeter artillery piece didn't have a sight. And in the middle of a town just to the east of the Donetsk airport, there was a real tall smokestack that stuck up in the air. And GV didn't like that because Ukrainians could use that as an observation point and see where the Russians were so as that they could engage them and, well, make good Russians out of them. Well, GV didn't have a sight on this 105 millimeter gun. And so he was literally looking through the barrel, trying to sight this 105 millimeter artillery piece in on this smokestack. And so he would stick a 105 millimeter shell in there, and he would fire it. And that 105 millimeter shell would arc up through the air, miss the smokestack, and come down in a farming village on the other side. So GV's been doing this for about a half an hour. And all of a sudden, somebody comes up and tells GV, artillery has hit a house in this village over here. So GV jumps in his car. They drive over there real quick. This is exactly on the opposite side of the smokestack from where GV was firing. So GV fired the round. Well, there was about an 80-year-old man who lived over on the other side of there. And his wife, his daughter, and his granddaughter were all in the kitchen making lunch. And the old man was outside working in the field. And that round that GV fired came down, came through the kitchen window, exploded in the kitchen, and killed that old man's wife, killed that old man's daughter, and killed that old man's granddaughter. Now that pissed me off. But when GV showed up to the scene and swore to that old man that those rounds had came from the Ukrainian military, that he knew those were Ukrainian military rounds, and those were Ukrainian troops that killed his family, well, that was a total lie. Ukrainians never fired those rounds. Ukrainians had nothing to do with it. GV killed those people. And right then and there, I said, you're a dead motherfucker. Nobody has the right to just fire rounds and kill people and then blame their own country for what's going on. So I called my people. I said, you let them know I'll be there. I'll do anything they want. So when the gentleman I told you about that I went over there for, I can't, what's his name? I can never pronounce his name. You know what I'm talking about? The guy that invited me to Ukraine. I sent you the email. Anyway, when he called me on the phone and wanted to know what all I could do for Ukraine, thermal imagers, night vision, heads-up displays, encrypted two-way radios, tracking systems, drones. I mean, you name it. I was head of the Dismounted Battle Space Battle Lab at Fort Benning. I was the senior technologist for the Army. And so I told him, I said, anything you need, I'll bring whatever. And I did. I brought a plane load of stuff, plus I brought 6 cartons of Marlboro cigarettes for the guys, because they don't get real Marlboros over there. And that's as many as I could illegally bring. So he called me on the phone, and he says, Lee, I appreciate your support. I appreciate everything you want to do. He says, but why do you want to help Ukraine? And I said, because I want to remove GV and Motorola from the battlefield. And his response was, how soon can you be here? I said, how soon can you get me a ticket? He said, we'll be in touch. And so the following day, your embassy emailed me and said, we would request that you come to Ukraine. And so I did. And that's how I got started in Ukraine. And when I went over there, I took gyro-stabilized binoculars, night vision, thermal imagers. I took the Cobra thermal imager. I took helmet-mounted thermal imagers. I took all kinds of stuff. I was Santa Claus when I got over there. And you guys treated me like gold. You hauled me around in armored personnel carriers. You gave me a private hotel to stay in. You took me to all your ranges. I got to meet all of your VIPs and train your men. And for me, it was an honor. And the greatest honor I had was when they gave me a patch from Dnepro 1. And Americans aren't supposed to wear that shit. I didn't know that. Okay? So I put it on. And I'm walking around through Ukraine with a Dnepro 1 patch on my shoulder. Imagine that. And I'm going through the airport when I'm leaving, and this old man in the airport, he was hot. Oh, my God. He was so mad that this American was wearing this Dnepro 1. It was like I had, sacrificed Jesus or something, because I had this patch on my shoulder. And so the head of your FSB, your secure SBU, Security Bureau of Ukraine, the head of your SBU at the time goes over to this guy who is so irate and talks to him and calms him down. And so the head of your SBU comes back over to me. And I said, what was that about? And so he told me about, I wasn't supposed to be wearing the patch. And I said, I'll take it off. He goes, no, Lee, don't take it off. You've earned that. I said, well, he was mad when you went and talked to him. When you got done talking to him, you calmed him down. What did you say? He said, well, I told him if you knew what he had done for Ukraine, you would put that patch on him yourself. And that was one of the proudest moments of my life. I mean, I've had some real experiences where I've been a proud man. I put up the flag at the Pentagon on 9/11. Okay? I've done a lot of things. But to be held in that regard by your people was an extreme honor for me, one that I still carry to this day. And until my dying breath, I will continue to support Ukraine with all my heart and soul. You see, we do a broadcast about Ukraine every day. Ukraine is a major part of the KLW World News. And so we want to continue to support you in any way we can. But that's my GV and Motorola. That's what got me started in Ukraine, was GV and Motorola killing innocent people and assassinating your troops. And that shouldn't happen anywhere. Should never happen. And those of us who are professional warriors, we need to, how should we say, eliminate, eviscerate, eradicate people who operate that way. So anyway, we'll get back to you, buddy. So where do you want to go from here? You want to talk about how you got into the military and your history?
I can talk about that as well. As for the patch, I have plenty of patches from my friends from the UK, from the US, from Netherlands, from Australia, from different other countries, and if I had some understanding how to wear them all, because
put a vest on, sew them on a vest.
Yeah, probably, because
sew them on a vest.
Here in Ukraine, and I think that you can confirm that for our viewers, Ukrainians are very, very welcoming towards the foreigners who come to Ukraine to help us.
Yes,
and it's like of course we value all kinds of support, all kinds of people supporting us, but if those people come from other countries, it's twice as valuable, because those people are like they don't have to help us, but they choose to help us, and that's why we all appreciate it so much. um,
Well,
and
every civilized person should help you. Period. Every civilized person on the face of the planet should help Ukraine, because what the Russians are doing to Ukrainians is nothing short of despicable. And if you don't
I
support
agree.
Ukraine, I think there's something wrong with you. I really do. And if I piss somebody off, too bad. There's something wrong with you.
I agree. I agree on that, because currently we understand that we are not only protecting Ukraine. Russians were saying through their media, through their social media, through their speakers, multiple times that they are not gonna stop in Ukraine, regardless of the outcome of
You're absolutely
their
right.
invasion. Yeah, they will. They are not gonna stop. Recently, Solovyov said that it's not about. Again, it was really funny and ridiculous, because he said it's not about territory. We have plenty of territory. At the same time, they attached like 5 regions to Russia in the past 2 years. And he said, we will not stop in Kyiv or in Warsaw or in Paris. We will only stop when we decide, So we understand that, and we have this clear understanding that it's not only about Ukraine, it's about stopping that big international terrorist from capturing and destroying the democratic countries of the world. It's really serious fight. It's not only about Ukraine. It extends way beyond the borders of Ukraine. And here in Ukraine, we understand this. We're not only fighting for our land, but we also fight for our friends, whom we love, whom we appreciate, and people who help us, even though, again, they didn't have to, but they chose to help us, and they did the right choice. And Ukrainians will always be grateful for this.
Well, you guys need our help because we should have been there in the first place. See, a lot of people don't know about the Budapest Memorandum and our security guarantees to you. You guys gave up a huge nuclear arsenal, as well as the largest collection of nuclear bombers in the world, I believe is what you had in your possession in 1993. Of course, I'm a lot older than you are. I don't know how old you were in 93, but I remember when the Budapest Memorandum was signed. I remember our money from the military going over there to support that and move that stuff around. So, we should have been there in the beginning. And then when war broke out, and instead of sending you the arms and equipment that you needed, we sent you blankets with holes in them. We sent you Humvees that didn't run. And we sent you non-lethal support. And dude, I was fucking furious, because I knew what we were supposed to be doing, and I knew that you guys were getting slaughtered, and I knew it was our fault. And then when I saw what GV and Motorola were doing, I was like, I'm livid. Still am. Still am. I think about you guys every day, and the guys that I trained over there every day. And I told all them, and I will extend the same invitation to you. I told all the guys that I trained over there and provided equipment to, if you ever come to the United States, I'll give you a tour of the country. So you ever come over here, let me know, and I'll show you the Pentagon. I'll take you to military bases. I'll take you to New York City. I'll take you anywhere you want to go. Okay? Because you guys put your lives on the line for freedom. It's your freedom, and it's the freedom of all of Europe. You guys are the front line between, as far as I'm concerned, good and evil. It's what the Russians are doing to you is nothing short of despicable. And if I weren't married over there, or if I weren't married, I would be over there right now. you guys would have to be continuing to bring me ammunition because I would be melting the barrels down on the fucking guns, dude. I am so infuriated with what the Russians are doing to you. And then the expansion of this war, and we can get into that into another show. But I'm in awe at what you guys have done. Everybody thought you guys were going to fall in a matter of days, and you have proven that Russia is the second-rate military in Ukraine, or for now, anywhere else in the world they go, because you guys have literally pounded their ass into the ground for years. And the ratio of what warfare is, the Ukrainians have now changed that. Before it was like 3 or 4 to 1. If you were in a metropolitan area and invaders were coming in, 3 or 4 invaders would die for every single defender. In Bakhmut, there was a day, because I keep track of this every single day, there was a day in Bakhmut, you guys were killing 9, 10, and 11 Russians for every single Ukrainian that was lost, which is unheard of. We're talking triple what it normally is. And then what you've done with drones, you're at what, 41% of all Russian armor is being destroyed with a Ukrainian drone. Isn't that what about the number was? Something like that?
Yeah, 42.6, I believe, percent of the all Russian vehicles and tanks destroyed in October this year. They were destroyed using our FPV drones and strike drones, and out of this number, 56% of eliminated Russian artillery systems and multiple launch rocket systems were also destroyed by the FPV drones.
Now, have you, we briefly talked about this on Twitter when we were chatting back and forth. You have not had the opportunity to see the BV-206 or to see the CV-90, is that correct?
That's correct, unfortunately. I can mostly talk about the things that I saw in my brigade, and some of the things I cannot discuss, unfortunately. Wish we had a bit more of the Western weaponry, though, but I'm sure that in the future we will see that. Okay,
so do me this favor. When they get to use those toys that we can't talk about, will you come back on the show and will you talk about them then? Because
absolutely,
it's you know what I'm saying. You picking up what I be laying down, and I'm not going to go any farther into this because I know what you're laying down too. Okay, so
yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to be fun. All I can say is when the time comes, I would love to be there with you, buddy. My wife would kill me if I tried to go. But I would, I'm telling you, if I wasn't married, I would be in the front seat, okay, going right out there with you, because this is going to be such a wonderful thing. You guys are going to rewrite what you guys are going to do. I don't think has ever been done to anybody anywhere. If you look back through all of military history, so you guys are going to set a precedent, and you've done that so many times in this war with what you've done with drones, with what you've done with ATGMs, with what you've done with your own remote systems, with what you've done with cellular surveillance, with what you've done with your naval drones, and destroying the Russian Navy in a land battle with no Navy yourself to speak of. I mean, the dinghies for some of my boats are larger than what you guys have for a Navy now with your baby, what do you call that? The Marine drone?
Mosquito fleet.
Yeah, the Mosquito fleet. But no, but you call that one drone, it's a baby something.
Baby, yeah, Maluk, yeah, baby.
Yeah, so I love that. And then I love your new shark drone. And you got to tell me, so what's the origin of your Sharky tattoo?
My shark?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's a great story. So there was this Russian tourist swallowed by a tiger shark while resting in Hurghada, and oh my God, I wasn't supposed to say that. Basically, I was supposed to say like, I love tiger sharks, right? And
Right.
this tiger shark has this fat belly, and the
Uh-huh.
content of this belly speaks those unknown, unrecognizable words like "помогите, спасите, пожалуйста," you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I love tiger sharks. They're kittens.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. We actually covered that Russian that was swallowed by that. Okay. I'm glad to know that's where that came from, because I knew they had to have a special meaning, and so that's cool. That's really cool. I don't.
People were furious so much on the internet. They were like, that man was just a young common Russian man who got slaughtered by this horrible like, how can you say those words about sharks? Guys, they're beautiful, they're cute. And like, he was calling his dad while drowning and being devoured by shark. He was calling his dad, he was screaming papa, papa. So first of all, it's a bullshit. He was not screaming papa, he was screaming basically. And right.
I love you, dude.
And you can watch numerous videos of Russians, behaving in a really bad way and treating those animals, like the camel who was beaten by Russians, and he like had to protect himself. That's why he killed that bastard. And another thing is, karma is a bitch. If you destroy things like Kakhovka Dam, if you don't care about ecology, if you bring death and destruction to other lands, well, karma is a bitch, and it will fight back 100%.
Yeah, and I love her. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I love delivering what you never thought was coming. And
Yeah.
one of these days we'll get together over drinks or something, and we'll talk about some of the crazy shit that we did when I was over there to deliver to these Russians. And by the way, that Russian had dandruff, and we know that because they found his head and shoulders on the beach.
Yeah. Yeah, nice one.
We love
Yeah, I agree on that. Again, what kind of Russian tourist would have a tan in Hurghada while there's like mobilization in his country, right? So he either had to run away or just pay enough money to be able to go out to leave his country and go like have a rest in Egypt. So basically, he was not like an ordinary Russian. And like, to summarize all this, I believe that our viewers can just type Russian tourist, okay, in YouTube or in Google, and see why we don't like them so much. So I think that the action taken by the tiger shark, may she rest in peace, were completely justified.
I was worried that the shark was actually like going to get indigestion or maybe die, because of what it had ingested. But that's just orcs over there. So let's see, where else do we want to go with this? So as far as the Russians, they've lost a lot of people. I mean, we're talking over 300,000 fatalities on a battlefield, close to 1 million men when you add in everybody who's been wounded on the Russian side. You're starting to see, and this is just my observation from monitoring the war front. I mean, you're there, I'm here, but I try to listen to everything all you guys say. You're actually starting to see the true attrition that you are inflicting into the Russians. That's why they're showing up with T-34s. They showed up with a T-10 the other day. The shit they're pulling out of museums. They've put out a request for old military equipment that the Russians have sold worldwide. They'll buy it back now so they can have some armor to come into Ukraine for you guys to blow up. I mean, you guys, the Ukrainian army is the most effective killing machine in the history of the world. I don't know of any military that has been able to sustain combat with another country. We're talking almost 2 years now. Okay? And you guys are still not 1 for 3. You're taking out 9, 10, 11, 12 Russians for every one of you guys. You guys are by far the most effective military, I believe, in the history of the world. I don't know anybody else that does those numbers, has ever done those numbers. The Russians did, or the Germans didn't even do that against the Poles when they blitzkrieged across Poland. They didn't have those numbers. The Ukrainians are teaching the world how to fight. You guys are the ultimate warriors on the battlefield. If anybody argues with those numbers, please put them into the chat or put them into the comments. I don't know of anybody who is any better than the Ukrainians. And if I didn't live in the United States, I would live in Ukraine. I really would, dude. When I came there, I fell in love with your country. I fell in love with your people. I will be honest with you. I'm over half a century old. And I've never, ever in my life ever met a Ukrainian that I didn't like. Now, I'm sure there probably is one somewhere that I wouldn't, but I haven't met him yet. In all the time I spent in Ukraine and all the Ukrainians I've talked to in the United States, all the Ukrainians I know in the United States, every single one of them is good people. And that, along with the fact of me being over there and meeting your people, gives me the feeling of that. It's a beautiful country. You've got vast amounts of resources. Putin wants them. He wants your warm weather port. Okay? And go into that. Why do you think Putin wants Ukraine? And then I want you to follow that up with why Putin should never have Ukraine and why the Ukrainians will never stop fighting until every inch of your land is back in your control and every orc is off of your territory.
So the Russians have this ideology of the Russian supremacy called the Russian world or Ruski Mir. It's a tricky thing because the word Mir means world, and it also means peace. You know, when they talk about the Russian world, they Ruski Mir. They usually this word has usually like two meanings. And this is basically a fascist ideology. So it has several foundations, I would say, which is religion, which is, you know, like they're sportsmen, the strongest sportsmen in the world, which is this shit called mysterious Russian soul, загадочная русская душа, you know.
And with that, the Russians actually think they own the world, right?
Yeah. So
they think the whole planet belongs to Russia, and we're just a nuisance on that planet.
Yeah, exactly.
Because people don't understand that. They don't realize the mentality of the Russian people, that the Russian people think they are the superior race, and the rest of us are to serve them. And the reason orcs fight so hard is because they have a saying, and I'm probably going to screw up this saying, but their saying is, the harder it is, the better it'll be. You're familiar with that?
Yeah, чем хуже, тем лучше.
Yeah, and so they think if it's went to shit, oh, well, when we get to the other side, it'll be way, way, way better. It never is. It never is. It never improves for Russia. Russia has been shit for a long time and will always be shit as long as they are the mentality. And it is this mentality of they own the world. So go on. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I wanted everybody to understand where they're coming from, and you're doing a great job.
Yeah, so John Pautler in the chat says, same as Germans thought during World War II. Russianism is actually worse than the German Nazism of the times of the World War II, because it's even hard to consider it an ideology, as some of the wise and anonymous users on the internet once said. Russianism is a chaos of shit and death, which perfectly describes this. I don't know. Let's call it idea, right? Because it spreads beyond one race, even though it's about one race, right? They say that they fight for one Orthodox Russian church. At the same time, they have plenty of Muslims in Chechnya and Dagestan and Ossetia who are brought to the Ukrainian battlefield to die for Putin and his like Orthodox, ideas.
And in him doing that, that's almost like a genocide. He's picking out the communities that he thinks are of lower esteem. Like, some people think derogatory about people of the South in the United States. There are communities in Russia that Putin doesn't like. And so he is taking the young men and women from those communities and sticking them into the meat waves, sticking them into the meat grinder. And so it's technically his way of genocide, of getting rid of the people that he doesn't like and doesn't like
absolutely.
their race. And again, people have no idea. This is why I so love you coming on to the show, because you can validate what I'm saying, because people are like, that's not true, Lee. Well, ask Starsky. He ain't going to lie to you.
One thing people should understand is that Russians hate you no matter who you are.
There you go.
When you come to a different country, right? No matter if you're like a British person, an American person, Canadian, French, German, doesn't matter. First thing you do in a different country is you're trying to find some good cuisine, some good local food, right? Because everybody likes good food. You're trying to make acquaintances, make friends, maybe learn some of the phrases in the local language, right? Because it's something that makes people instantly like you when you try to speak their language, even if you fail. But you're trying to learn more about this place wherever you are, because it's interesting, it's curious. You are curious about it. First things Russians do when they come to a different country, they say, "I am Russian. Deal with it." They do that all the time. They come to your resorts in Greece or like in Italy wearing shorts saying, "I'm Russian. Be afraid of me." Because this is what they want. This is the only thing that brings them pleasure. Like playing Russian songs really loud on the beach, to scare away people and stuff like that. Because they're naturally born bullies. They are raised like that, and they hate you no matter what you do, no matter how hard you're trying to be their friend or make them your friends, drink with them, whatever. It's just in their culture. They hate you, and they want you to die. That's why they
not quite as bad as Palestinians and Jews, but
something like So they will come to your country on expensive Russian cars, saying towards Berlin, or we can repeat, and especially they like to show those stickers in like Germany, and like reminding to German people what they did to German people, when they captured Germany, this is their typical behavior, guys. Like it's normal for Russians to be like that. That's why they hate you and they want to see your demise for one simple reason. Their life in Russia is a freaking torture. It's a suffering every day. They live in poverty. Half of their population has no normal toilets, no normal sewers. no normal future, so to say, and they live in a freaking their life is a freaking torture. That's why they want to see you suffering more than them. This is their type of mentality, and also at the same time they're envious so much because what you have now is a like, even if you don't like your life like in France or Germany or whatever, it's 100 times better than in freaking Khabarovsk or Murmansk. Trust me. And they're envious so much. That's why they want to see your beautiful cities in France and Germany and Italy burning, because you don't have right to live better than Russians. You see, so this is their ideology basically, and at the same time, their church and their Tsar, their rulers, they say. Russians, you don't need that. You have mysterious Russian soul. You don't need to live prosperous life. But at the same time, you can make other people suffer, and this will bring you some relief. And this is the very primitive explanation on why Russians are so atrocious by nature. And this is the reason why we should stay away from them. We should freaking isolate their culture, because if their culture brings death to other cultures, maybe we don't really need it.
I'm with you. There's a lot of cultures. Well, I don't want to say a lot, but the Russians aren't the only one that the world would be better off without. Now, tell me, my friend, why should Ukraine never ever give up an inch of your territory? And I agree that if I were going to give up any Ukrainian territory, I would actually physically purchase 2 square meters for a plot to put Putin in. That would be the only territory I would give up to a Russian. If I would pay for that land if that ever was ever available to do that. But tell me, why should Ukraine never give up an inch of their territory, and explain to people why Ukrainians, the people who say, like Trump says, I could end this war in 24 hours. He's full of shit, because his plan for ending the war in 24 hours is for you guys to give up your territory. And in my opinion, Trump has no fucking clue what he's talking about, because you're not going to stop fighting no matter what Trump says. And you're not going to give up your land no matter what Trump says. Are those two accurate statements? Trump doesn't dictate who and where and what you fight.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, he has this absolutely magnificent idea of
delusion.
Scaring Ukrainians with like stopping all kinds of supplies, and at the same time scaring Russians with giving all kinds of supplies to Ukrainians. Like, this man is not just delusional. It's like a cheap populism, I think. And the reason why Ukrainians will not give up to Russians, there's actually plenty of reasons. So first of all, it's really, really hard to negotiate with people who want to kill you.
Absolutely. You can't.
It's impossible. We never invaded Russia. They came on their freaking tanks. They started hitting our cities with cruise missiles and ballistic missiles and bombs. And what they're doing is they're trying to remove Ukrainian identity from the face of the earth. Check out all those numerous statements made by Putin as well, that Ukraine doesn't exist. We never saw Ukraine back in 17th or 16th century. That's why Ukraine must be destroyed. It must be captured by Russians because it belongs to us.
But Ukraine is a century older than Russia. When Ukraine when Ukraine had
Yeah,
beautiful cathedrals. The only thing in Russia was bear shit.
yeah,
It didn't
it's
even
true.
have a name. It was just wilderness. And for the Russians to think that they own you when you guys have been around for a century or so longer is asinine. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
so
I'm sorry. I digress. But there's just so much history that people don't know. And so they agree with this bullshit that the Russians say. People like
yeah,
Jackson Hinkle. That you know who I'm talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, I know that
Yeah, you know.
individual. So Kiev was one of the central, one of the key trading cities, trading megapolises in Eastern Europe. 600 years before the wild swamp on the north turned into a village, Kuchkina, that later turned into a city of Moscow, like 600 years before or so. And there's plenty of reasons why Ukraine should not lose this war. It's really dangerous to lose this war in terms of international law, in terms of law-based order that we have since the times of the World War II, because the United Nations recognize the borders of the countries that should not be changed. The United Nations recognize that no country must use force to capture the territory of another country. And all the countries, all the members of the United Nations recognize this law. And if Russia captures and officially annexes the territories of Ukraine, this law will be questioned by numerous other maniacs out there who want to capture the territories of their neighbors. And I'm talking about China, that wants to capture Taiwan, and many other countries. So,
Well,
another reason is,
have you heard about the fact that China is talking about attacking with North Korea, South Korea, and Japan? And
yeah, there are such rumors. And another thing is Ukraine is a democratic country. Again, there's a lot of supporters of the Russian terrorism on the West who hate Ukraine for no reason whatsoever. At the same time, Ukraine never wanted to see the demise of the US. Ukraine always wanted to be friend with all kinds of countries on the East, on the West. Even though our presidents were mostly pro-Russian, but at the same time, our people wanted to be friends with like everybody as much as possible. That's why we have great trading agreements with like African countries that we supply with food, with grain, with crops. That's why we have like plenty other agreements with all kinds of countries. And at the same time, Russia always wanted to see the demise of the US, always. And we should not make Russia stronger, because if Ukraine is destroyed, right, Ukrainian people will not just disappear. They will be brainwashed. In 15, 20 years, several new generations will be born that will have this hatred towards West, this Russian mentality, and those people will be your biggest enemy. And the problem with that is the simple fact that Ukrainian army was the core of the Soviet army. And that is the reason why Soviet army itself was so much feared around the world. Ukrainian soldiers in the Soviet army back in those times, they participated in all kinds of conflicts versus even US soldiers. Like in Vietnam, there were special forces brought to Vietnam to support Viet Cong troops versus the American soldiers. Caribbean crisis and things like that, Ukrainians always participated. After this Russian invasion in Ukraine, this former core of the Soviet army, because we were always strongest, always most professional, or always the most courageous in the Soviet army. Currently, this core is your biggest ally, because we are so much grateful for all the support given to us by the world. We are biggest ally of the NATO. And in case Ukrainian state is annexed, and in case Ukrainian identity is removed, this Russian army will become 10 times stronger, because it will also acquire all the experience of our army that we gained in terms of NATO tactics, NATO doctrine, NATO weaponry, and things like that. And in just 20 years, unfortunately, NATO troops will have to face 10 times stronger Russian army on the battlefield. And during those years, of course, you will not see like Russian bombers like striking your cities or things like that, because Russian politicians don't want to strike European cities because they don't want to kill their own kids who live and study there.
Exactly. I've said that 100 times, dude.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's so many ways to disrupt this unity in the NATO countries, disrupt the unity in the European Union, because people who have this, who are convinced that they can just relax because they live in the NATO country that can fight together with its allies against like anybody, they must realize that their country can quit NATO as easy as they became NATO, because Russians have this tremendous informational warfare used against the European countries and NATO countries, and of course the United States. So that is another thing why Ukraine must win, because Ukraine is not only fighting on the front lines, like actually fighting versus living Russian soldiers, right? Temporary living Russian soldiers, but Ukraine also provides its experience, its support in fighting against Russian informational warfare, Russian cyber warfare, because Russia is very strong in terms of cyber warfare. And in the past, I believe only in 2023, the Security Service of Ukraine, together with its cyber specialists, they deflected 4,000 Russian cyber attacks, not only against Ukraine, but also against other countries, because we cooperate with other countries in terms of cybersecurity. And again, informational warfare, the propaganda that exploits democracy in order to destroy democracy in other countries. This is again something so serious, so a lot of people cannot really understand the weight, the size of this problem. It's something that we should learn how to protect against, because Russians that despise democracy, that don't have freedom of speech, they will use democracy in order to destroy democracy. And the Russian invasion in your country, if you're a NATO country, it will start on the streets, and it will develop into, your country quitting NATO, Russian so-called peacekeepers, but in reality invaders landing in your airports, and this is how shit hits the fan in European countries. So Russia is it's the biggest evil the world has ever seen since the times of the World War II. It's a terrorist country recognized as a terrorist regime by the Parliamentary Assembly of the European Union, European Council. And we must understand that we should fight against it. We should protect our generations against it. And this enemy will not stop if it won't be stopped.
And you're absolutely right about that. And they have to be stopped. They are
Yeah.
devouring anything that's next to them. And there's an old saying about Russia, and I know I'm going to get it wrong, but you probably know it, and you can correct me. That the only countries that Russia doesn't attack on its borders are countries that Russia wants on its borders. And the countries that Russia wants on their borders are no one. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've heard that saying.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like, I know I got it wrong, but anyway, it's
But at the
close.
same time, there's plenty of neighbors, Russian neighbors, uh, who hate Russia for some reason, like Poland, like Baltic countries, again Ukraine, Georgia, and there must be a reason, like why they don't like Russia. Like, what's the reason? The
And
reason is very simple. It's because during some period of its history, Russia always tried to snatch their territories.
well, yeah, and they're going to continue to do so. And what do you think we see that the Baltic countries now are putting up walls? They're putting up fences. We're seeing RC-135 surveillance aircraft. We're seeing NATO Global Hawks. We're seeing Brio surveillance aircraft flying all along the Baltic states there with Belarus and Ukraine and Russia. What's your feeling on what's going on over there? Do you think that Russia is dumb enough to do something in those countries over there, or like they're doing with the war of bringing in all of these immigrants into Europe? We've got Russians pouring across our southern border along with Serbians and you name them. They're all coming across the border. Millions of them are coming across our border. You think Russia is doing that? And what do you think of Wagner now being headed up by Prigozhin's son?
Yeah, well, Russia is pumping up their diasporas in other countries with this, again, it's hard to call a Russian world or Russianism an ideology, but let's call it this way.
It's a mental illness.
So, yeah, yeah, and they will keep using, this Russian fake about, like poor Russian people being oppressed in other countries, and of course Russia has to protect them. They don't even have to be like ethnic Russians. They should just speak Russian language, which completely justifies Russian invasion. Like Elon Muscovite.
Oh God,
Elon Musk.
Elon.
He said if people speak Russian, they should belong to Russia. It's like for the same reason we can say that if people speak English, then probably Canada or like US must join with the UK, right? Like it's
Well, the
dumb.
southern half of the United States would belong to Mexico.
Yeah, yeah. It's so crazy, so it's not even funny because I'm not laughing. And they will use those Russian diasporas to destabilize situation, to pump the hatred, in those countries. Again, those guys in the Baltic countries, they act against it, I would say, rather effectively. But the only thing that is protecting them is the fact that they are now NATO countries, NATO members. If not for that, oh my God, Finland, for example, would have a lot of problems. But I'm really happy that they managed to join.
Oh yeah, I am too, and I'm sure there's a whole lot of people who are sleeping better at night because that did happen. Because it is a threat, and these guys will come across the border and just do stupid shit, and start all kinds of bad things. But that's a story for another day. Now I know you wanted to keep this to 2 hours, and we've actually already exceeded that, and I apologize for that. But I do want to thank you for all that you do for Ukraine. I want to thank you for coming on the broadcast and sharing your knowledge with us. And I want to thank you for the broadcast that you put out on a daily or regularly, updating the world with what's really going on and the truth. And you do it with dignity, flair, pizzazz, and class all at the same time, which is something that all of us should strive to do. A lot of people have no idea how to do it, but you do very well at it. Now,
Thank you so much.
I want to give you guys, and I want to set this up, and I'm going to need your help to do this, okay? And this is one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the program. This is a thermal weapon scope. And when I came to Ukraine, I delivered this type of technology to you guys years ago. Now, I would like for you to set up, you guys do this regularly, I don't, because I'm going to have to deal with ITAR and all that other crap. But you guys have these come into Ukraine regularly. So I want you to set up an account with whomever, however we got to do it, and I'm going to get all of my followers to donate, and we're going to fund one of these to you guys. So this is a site mark scope. I've tested this thing. It's badass. If there's one you would rather have for Christmas, you tell us which one you would rather have, and we'll do a fun program for whatever scope you want. But the KLW World News community is going to give Operator Starsky a thermal weapon sight for Christmas this year. That's going to be our gift to you, my friend. Now, you can do whatever, you can give that scope to whoever you want. You can put it on your own weapon. You can do whatever it is you want to do with that. But I believe in what you do. I believe in your cause. And we're going to give you one of these for Christmas. So let me know over Twitter how you want us to do that GoFundMe page or however, wherever you want the money to go. And whatever scope you want, you let us know. We're going to buy you one. Okay? I'm going to put the first
Sounds amazing. I will talk to some of our guys, maybe our our recon guys or maybe snipers, right. and I will let you know that.
Yeah, whatever you want. I'm going to put the first $500 in there, and then I'm going to make sure that you get one by Christmas, no matter what it costs. If I've got to pay for the whole fucking thing by myself, I will do that. But you're going to get a scope for you to give to whoever you want for Christmas. So,
thank you.
Merry Christmas, my friend. So thank you for being here. Is there anything that you would like to say before we end the broadcast?
One thing is I would like to say thank you once again for this opportunity. And I would also like to say thank you to all our viewers. I see a lot of familiar nicknames there in the chat. Guys, your support for my people will never be forgotten by my people. Guys, I want you to remember this. Ukrainian people will never forget your help. That's why we cannot call the foreign defenders of Ukraine foreigners. You are Ukrainians now, and thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you, my friend. I greatly appreciate having you here. You are welcome to come back anytime you like. I'd like to make this regular, if at all. If you want to do it once a week, once a day, once a month, whatever works for you. You can come here. You can do updates for us. We can keep track. I want to talk about, there's a lot of things I want to talk about that we can't talk about yet because they haven't happened yet. But when they do, man, I got some stories for you about some of the toys that you're getting ready to play with. You got to see that video. I've played with a lot of things over the years, and I will continue. If there's anything you guys need, you call me. Okay, if you need to, you want to do something with electronics, you want to do something with encryption, you want to do, I mean, we have our own global encrypted network. If any of you guys, we've used our network to get people out of Ukraine because we can track them in real time, and it's encrypted so nobody else can see them. And it's the same system that the U.S. government was using. Now we've got a newer system that's just like that we can put on your phone. So if there's ever anybody you guys need to track, if you need to keep track of somebody, you let me know. I will buy you a channel and I will buy them a channel, and I will give you personal tracking of those two on our network, but only between you two. Nobody else will see it. So if there's ever anything that you guys need to do special, you need to do for you or your family or for your men, you let me know. I'll sponsor you guys to put you on a network. I'll pay for it out of my own pocket. because I love what you guys are doing. And like I said, if anything ever happens to my wife, you better fucking look out because I'm coming to your house. Okay, we're going to go have some fun. So anyway, thank you, sir. You have a great evening. It has been a pleasure, and I look forward to having you here again.
Thank you so much. Be safe.
Okay, have a great night, my friend.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that has been Operator Starsky. This has been one of the best interviews we have ever done. We love the Ukrainians, Operator Starsky, and all of the folks. NAFO, everybody else. Oh, that's the thing I forgot to ask him was about NAFO. I wanted to talk about NAFO. We'll have to do that next time. You guys remind me. All right, folks, thank you for being here. We're going to end both of these broadcasts. Then we're going to come back live on Rumble, and we will be doing a broadcast there we'll do a public broadcast. Because, hell, we had Operator Starsky here. Also, this broadcast will be uploaded to YouTube, and we'll be doing that as a premiere. So thanks for being here. See you next time, folks. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.